20 years ago today, the British journalist John McCarthy was released after being held hostage for more than 5 years in Lebanon.
He now supports the charity Freedom from Torture, which helps thousands of torture survivors to rebuild their lives.
Talk about that in just a moment with John, I'm delighted to say is here. First, just remind ourselves what he went through.
In 1986, John McCarthy was working in Beirut for a television news agency. One day in April, he was kidnapped from his car by members of the Islamic Jihad organisation. They held him hostage for the next 5 years. He was kept in a mosquito-ridden cell and endured beatings, physical hardship, boredom and, at times, solitary confinement, all with the threat of execution constantly hanging over him. Back in the UK, his friends and family campaigned tirelessly for his release, until eventually, on the 8th of August 1991, he was freed, alive, well and smiling, despite his ordeal.
But John, it's hardly the matter at hand, but it ages all of us that it's 20 years since you came out. It feels like yesterday.
I remember living it and watching it on the news at the time. It's just incredible.
It was an amazing day, you know, because I started the day, you know, blindfolded in a darkened cell, and then started travelling around Beirut in the boot of a car, and ended up coming home to RAF Lyon in the UK in a special aeroplane and being greeted, you know, coming off the plane like that with my dad. It was an extraordinary day. But looking at the file footage, you do realise it is 20 years, because I look at myself and see I've aged a bit.
To me, you're looking in fine fettle. 20 years on, I can't believe you ever get over something like that. What impact does it have on your life now? Do you still dream about it?
No, I don't dream about it. I think it's, I mean, obviously on a special anniversary like today and meeting you guys and thinking about it, it comes back a lot and it stays with you. And an experience like that obviously stays with you, and I think it changed me a lot, made me very much more aware of myself as an individual, my weaknesses, and I hopefully discovered some strengths to cope with that experience and share it with fellow hostages like Brian Keenan and Terry Waite. And I think, you know, made me more sort of empathetic to people around the world who suffer those sorts of experiences much more obviously regularly perhaps than British people do, clearly.
You know, I support, of course, Freedom from Torture. Just explain a little bit about the work that they do and certainly your
Well, basically,
role.
they're the only charity in the UK that specifically looks after torture victims, and these torture victims come from all over the world. The charity has been running for 25 years, has looked after 50,000 victims, which is incredible. And I think that for the reason that, and what they do, they basically sort of help them psychologically, physically, get over their experience, and importantly, document what happened to them. Because I think all too often we forget that this is going on still, you know, routinely around the world. And for me, what really appeals is the fact that, you know, I did come home, we're sort of marking 20 years of it, and I came home to all that public awareness, huge amount of support from everybody, family, but friends, the whole nation was right behind me. And nobody has ever denied my story or doubted it. I think people who have survived torture at the hands, wherever it might be, in Afghanistan or wherever around the world, if they're lucky they survive, if they're lucky they might get out and come here, but they're not at home. Their story isn't necessarily believed by the authorities if they're seeking asylum. And most of all, they're separated from their families and perhaps won't ever be able to see them again. And I think, for me, trying to understand what that must be like, it's so important that there is a charity like Freedom from Torture to help them.
It'd be nice if we could look back at those pictures and think, well, you know, those were horrible days, what was happening in Lebanon. The world's a better place now. But you can't say that. Yeah. I mean, the torture is now talked about, and it's more of an issue now than it was then, and unrest everywhere. It's depressing, isn't it? Do you see it like that?
I do, and I think particularly in terms of the torture, that one sort of came out, when I first got involved with Freedom from Torture, you know, well, just almost 20 years ago when I came home, one was thinking, well, this must come to an end now, you know. We are aware of it, but the tragedy is that since then we've had, you know, potentially our own involvement as a British, you know, with the British government involved with aiding other governments or letting British citizens be tortured by other governments and other regimes, and that's terrible. You know, we should be working against that. So the fact that it does carry on is a desperate thing, and the world continues to be a violent place. Exactly.
So what do you do the rest of the day now? It's not really an excuse for a party somehow, but it needs marking somehow.
Well, it's just been, and I'm marking it by working with Freedom from Torture all day, where it's going to be great fun. We're going to be having a day at the BT Tower, which is fantastic. I've never been there before, so I'm very excited to be there.
It's just over your right shoulder over there.
There he is.
There it is. Look, they're ready
fantastic.
for you.
There you thought it's all blinking already. So we're going to be there and having a series of meetings. The public are going to be coming and being able to go up to what was the old revolving restaurant, so that should be fun. And then having a gathering, which will be involving friends like Jill Morell and Chris Pearson, who are involved with the campaign for the hostages later this evening, and gathering with that and talking to some of the supporters of the charity.
Okay. Hope it goes well. Thanks very much.
Well.
Lovely to meet you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.